Terrific, Woody. You look so well.
Thank you.
You do. You just look great.
Well, I feel okay.
I talked with you during Annie Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was 1977 or something, wasn't
Whatever.
Oh,
Okay. Well, Woody, first of all, I must say it's wonderful to see you again and to
you.
see you looking so very well, truly.
I look
you do.
younger, right? And I'll tell you why. Don't agree with me right off. I have a haircut because I'm doing a film, and I usually wear my hair longer, and it makes me look older.
Maybe, I don't know, but you just look really well.
Well, thank you.
And I really want to thank you for sharing this time with us because
sure.
it's a treat, Woody. I don't know if you realize that, but it's really a treat to get to
thank
see you.
To get out of the hot Texas weather, right?
Right.
To the hot, muggy New York weather.
Right. And of course, to talk about a Midsummer Night's sex comedy. I almost said
Yeah,
dream.
you said it.
I almost said it. A Midsummer Night's sex comedy. Woody, it's so refreshing to have this kind of movie at this time in the season because, as you're well aware, we're just being bombarded with all the special effects movies, Blade Runner, and that kind of thing. I wonder how you feel about that sort of movie because I just wonder if we aren't getting a kind of visual overload with that sort of thing.
Well, the ones that are good, I've liked. Starting back with 2001, which I thought was an interesting film. The ones that are just effects for the sake of effects, I don't like. In a general sense, I'm not a big electronic person. I don't like rock music and electric guitars. I don't like discotheques. I don't like video games. I don't like, so that kind of stuff is off-putting to me in general. But when someone comes along and makes a good movie and the effects in the movie are necessary to a good plot, it's really like explicit sex in a film. If it's there, just like the special effects, if it's there to reinforce and it's important to tell a really meaningful story, then it's fine. If it's just there to bring in customers, then I don't like it. And I think a certain amount of the electronic films that come out are strictly a lot of noise to try and get people in and substituting a lot of motion and energy and noise and electronics for a paucity of content.
Woody, do you ever see yourself making a film like Star Wars or Blade Runner or Empire or, Raiders?
Well, I don't for a few reasons. First of all, it's a different area of content than interests me. I mean, it would be fun for me to make a film like 2001, but because I feel that has a deeper content and so attracts me more. The other films are wonderful when they are wonderful, but the content level of them is aimed more at younger people, and I mean real younger people. And so I personally am not as attracted to them. I mean, I can recognize how beautifully made they are, or some of them, and how effective they are in their own terms. I mean, you can see a picture like whatever, Star Wars, and you think, gee, it's very effective in its own terms. But for me personally, I'm not that kind of a film. Those type of films don't interest me. But I wouldn't be against making a film if I had an idea, making a film that had to do with outer space, for example, if I had some sort of perspective on it, in the same sense that there are certain film directors who you don't associate with that would be fun. It would be fun to see what they would do with it. I mean, I would like to see what Fellini would do with a film about outer space, just because you don't associate him with it.
Woody, I remember when we talked about Annie Hall, you said that indeed it did reflect somewhat your life with Diane Keaton at that time. The new movie now, A Midsummer Night's Sex Comedy, how does it reflect your relationship with Mia Farrow?
In this sense, she has a country house, and she adores the country. I hate the country, and I don't go there. So she's up in Connecticut now with her children and having a great time, and it's moonlit and beautiful, and she has a house on a lake. And I'm here in the city, we see each other a couple of times a week during the summer, only because of this conflict here. And so, as a gesture of affection to her, I made a picture which embraces the country tremendously. It's very, it's meant to be very beautiful, with the silvery moon and little forest creatures, and just an absolutely beautiful homage to the country. And yet I don't have to go there or get mosquito bitten or get bored or worry about being in a shower where the water doesn't come down hard enough for me. And so it has that direct relation. It's sort of a present for me.
Then when you were making the movie, Woody, was it a real trial for you to be on location in upstate New York?
I would have preferred to have been making a movie here in Manhattan. It was more fun for me personally, just working conditions, to make Manhattan or Annie Hall, because I was within a few blocks from my house and the delicatessen and, the various places that I like to go to. And here I was out in the woods, and I did walk very, very tepidly amongst the poison ivy, and of course in this movie none of that shows up because it's really just an adoration of a sunny summer weekend.
We'll get you down in Texas and see what happens to you then. You'll
Snake bite, right?
You have such a culture shock you never will get over it. Woody, there's a quote that I read some time ago that you gave, and I made a note of it, and I thought the next time I see Woody I have to ask him. The quote is this: you talked about the futility of obtaining immortality through art. Mm-hmm. And I said, what is Woody Allen trying to tell us? Is he trying to say that he doesn't think he will live on, his works will live on, or what were you saying?
I was saying that rather than live on in the hearts and minds of my audience, I would rather live on in my apartment. That's how I feel about it. The concept of immortality through art is the same concept that one experiences in Catholicism about an afterlife. The artist has that feeling about his work all the time. But the truth of the matter is, you die, and the fact that other people are reading your books or seeing your films or something, it's more important to have fun while you're here. Okay. This is the shallow view of it, but not completely without merit.
But how do you want to be remembered?
Well, I mean, I don't think about it that much. One would rather be remembered if one is presented with that question, affectionately than not. I mean, you don't want to be remembered like Aaron Burr or something, But in the end, it doesn't really matter how you're remembered. What matters more is that you have a good time and a pleasurable time and make contributions while you're around.
I agree, Woody. One other thing I have to bring up is because, again, going back to the time we talked before, we got into a long thing about Bob Hope, you're a great admirer of his, and he is my very dear close friend. So now, have you all ever met or had a chance to talk?
No, it's the funniest thing. I did that evening for Bob Hope. I got the real pleasure of seeing all his films, screening them and picking out the best moments and making them up into a montage, and they honored him at Lincoln Center. I was in Paris at the time that he was there that evening, and that's as close as I've really come. But I have not met him since you and I have last
I'm going to make that a cause, that I get the two of you together.
But he, I do think, and I'm always proselytizing for him, and young kids who only see him on television now, sort of jadedly reading off cue cards, don't realize that he's got about 15 films or more, maybe 18 films or so, in which he's absolutely hilarious and wonderful. He's a great gifted comedian. But people see him now only as someone who was hawking the Vietnamese War and not really too interested in his work, because he kind of, as I say, bored. He comes out bored and reads on television. But he's a huge talent. Absolutely, one of the great comic talents of my experience.
Could you dream up a movie that you would direct him in, write and direct for him?
I guess I could. I mean, I guess he still looks good enough to play the leading man. You know, he's believable as a father, of course, obviously, because he's, you know, by most standards, you know, not that young. But yet you would believe him as the same girl chaser that he's been his whole life, you know, on the screen, and he's still that attractive and that alert, and, you know, he's perfectly believable, like Cary Grant. I mean, perfectly believable even now as a romantic lead.
All right. Well, let's work on that, Woody, okay?
Okay.
All right. Woody, again, thank you so much
Oh, it's a pleasure.
for giving us this time. You
Sure.
don't have to do this, and we really appreciate
but
the
it's
fact
fun.
that you do.
Well, thank
and
you.
congratulations on a Midsummer Night's Sex comedy. I hope it does blockbuster business
Oh,
for
thanks
you.
very much.
Thanks, Woody.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you.
Okay, Bobbie.
Great.
When have you last seen Bob?
Just a couple of months ago. I
Did
see
you?
him fairly regularly. Yeah.
I s- I s-
He's really my only very close friend in the business. I mean, he's
Mhm.
really a close friend.
Just right at this stand.
God,
Okay.
it was such a treat to see his movies at
All
Lincoln
right.
Center. It was some that I hadn't had an
Okay.
opportunity to see in years.
Now, I'm going to do reactions and reverse questions. Okay, are you cutting
Just
me?
don't do startled.
Are you, about here, okay. Yeah, all right, and our background doesn't give us away and all that good stuff? All right. Okay. I'll do reactions first.
Don't scoff at anything I say.
Wait a minute, we're recording sound. Okay, questions? Woody, with the barrage of special effects movies, do you, let me start over. Woody, I sometimes feel that we are getting a visual overload with all the special effects movies. What are your thoughts about those kinds of things? Star Wars, Raiders, that kind of thing. Do you ever see yourself making a big special effects movie? Woody, I remember when we talked about Annie Hall, you said that that movie did somewhat reflect your life and your relationship with Diane Keaton at that time. Now, this movie, how does it reflect your relationship with Mia Farrow? Then it must have been very difficult for you on location in upstate New York, wasn't it? Well, how did you get along then when you were making the picture in upstate New York? Woody, I remember reading a quote of yours, "The futility of obtaining immortality with art." What were you trying to tell us with that statement? How would you like to be remembered then? Woody, I want to know, have you and Bob Hope ever gotten together? You're such an admirer of Bob Hope's. Has it ever occurred to you to write a film that you could direct him in? Well, Woody, I want to thank you very much for giving us this time, and congratulations on a Midsummer Night's Sex comedy. I hope it does blockbuster business for you. Okay? Thank you.